The image of the lone cowboy herding cattle under the Texas sun is an American icon. But let's be honest, that's more of a Hollywood legend than today's reality. The truth about how the United States produces meat for the world is a much more industrial story, incredibly efficient, and on a massive scale. How is it possible that a single nation has created a machine capable of processing more than 30 million head of cattle each year? This is not just a matter of tradition. It is a science refined almost to the level of robotics. Let's break down the secrets of a system that begins with the birth of a calf on a prairie and ends with a perfectly packaged cut of meat, driving a multi-billion-dollar industry at breakneck speed. It all starts in the geographical and cultural heart of American cattle farming, the famous cattle belt. We're talking about a gigantic strip of land that crosses states like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. And here, the numbers are simply absurd. Texas alone has more than 11 million head of cattle, almost a third of the country's total. To give you an idea, legendary ranches like the King Ranch are larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. This is the cradle, the first phase of the cycle, breeding. Every year, around 29 million calves are born. They spend their first months of life with their mothers, grazing on hundreds of millions of acres of prairies and pastures. Here, tradition still carries weight. Cowboys on horseback, that immortal image, remain key to managing herds with a skill that is passed down from generation to generation. Even branding with a hot iron, a centuries-old practice, is still used to identify cattle ownership. But that movie image is only part of the story. Today, tradition and 21st century technology go hand in hand. It is not uncommon to see a cowboy on horseback working alongside a drone that monitors the health of thousands of animals from the air. Electronic GPS tags in their ears allow for individual, real-time tracking. And genetics is the other key piece. Decades of ultra-precise selection have created more resilient animals that grow faster and produce meat with the exact marbling demanded by the market. Every birth is, in essence, the result of brutal scientific planning that seeks maximum efficiency from day one. But how do you go from a calf, grazing peacefully in the pasture, to a market-ready animal in record time? The answer lies in the most controversial phase of the model: industrial feedlots. Forget pastures. These are veritable cattle cities designed as acceleration chambers. When calves weigh about 660 pounds, they are transported to these gigantic facilities. The largest feedlots in Kansas or Texas can house more than 100,000 animals at a time. Here, the menu changes radically. Grass is replaced by a high-energy diet, scientifically formulated with a single goal: to gain weight as quickly as possible. The star ingredient is corn. Thanks to government subsidies and massive production in the Midwest, corn is the cheap fuel that powers this fattening engine. The ration is supplemented with grains, vitamins, minerals, and often antibiotics to prevent disease in such a dense environment. The results are spectacular. An animal in a feedlot can gain up to 3.3 pounds per day. In just 6 to 8 months, they reach market weight of about 1,320 pounds, roughly half the time it would take if they were only eating grass. This efficiency is what allows the United States to produce nearly 20% of the world's beef, with only 8% of the world's cattle. Of course, this system is not without controversy. The amount of grain used to feed cattle opens up a huge debate about the use of resources. Is it a sustainable model in the long term? Let me know what you think in the comments. Once the cattle reach their ideal weight, the final stage begins: processing. The animals are taken to plants that operate on a scale and with an efficiency that seems straight out of a car factory. They are literally disassembly lines of almost surgical precision. Speed is everything. Thanks to automation and task specialization, these plants can process hundreds of animals per hour. The entire process is strictly monitored by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, which ensures that food safety standards are met. After slaughter, a USDA inspector reviews each carcass and grades it. This is where the famous categories we see in the supermarket come from: prime, choice, and select. The classification depends on the amount of marbling, that intramuscular fat, and the age of the animal. A prime cut, the highest grade, has more marbling, which means more flavor, more tenderness, and more juiciness, and of course, a much higher price. This label is crucial because it determines the value and destination of each cut. From here, one of the most sophisticated supply chains on the planet kicks into gear. The meat enters a cold chain that is never broken, traveling in refrigerated trucks, trains, and ships to reach every corner of the world. Complex software optimizes routes so that the meat arrives fresh and in perfect condition at your local restaurant or supermarket. This powerful system, refined over decades, now faces its greatest challenge: drought. Years of extreme drought, especially in the cattle belt, have scorched pastures and dried up water sources. This has forced ranchers to make a terrible decision: sell their breeding cows at an alarming rate because they simply cannot feed them. The consequences are historic. The U.S. national herd has fallen to its lowest level in more than 70 years, hovering around 87 million head. Fewer cows means fewer calves, which translates into lower future production capacity. As a result, the country's beef production is projected to fall by up to 6% in 2025 compared to the peak in 2022. This imbalance, with supply falling and demand remaining strong, is felt directly in our pockets. Meat prices are at record levels. To fill the gap, the United States is importing more meat and cattle from countries such as Mexico and Brazil. Added to all this are the usual criticisms about animal welfare in feedlots and the industry's environmental impact, from manure management to methane emissions. The question is inevitable: is the all-powerful American model on the verge of collapse? If you like this breakdown of how the world really works, subscribe and activate the bell. Here we analyze the big machines that drive our daily lives. So, there you have it. A system of stark contrasts. On the one hand, the legend of the cowboy on the Texas prairies. On the other, the colossal feedlots and automated plants that define industrial reality. It is a model that blends tradition and cutting-edge technology, monumental scale with almost microscopic efficiency, and has made the United States the undisputed leader in high-quality meat. But as we have seen, this giant is facing enormous pressures: the climate crisis, resource scarcity, and concerns about sustainability are forcing it to reinvent itself. And the industry is not sitting idly by. The answer is innovation. Artificial intelligence is already being used to optimize production. Special diets are being created to reduce methane from livestock, and blockchain systems are being explored to track a steak from the ranch to your plate. Ranchers are even trying out regenerative grazing practices to improve soil health. The US beef empire is at a crossroads. Its future no longer depends on being bigger, but on being smarter. The model that made it the king of beef was built to be fast and massive. The model of the future will also have to be sustainable and resilient. The crown is at stake.